Hello and welcome back to Christie's Cozy Corner. And today's video is going to be one where I talk about some of my favorite book characters. But instead of just listing them, I thought it would be fun to put a little visual representation up here, as most of these characters can be categorized into one or more of three categories. So we're going to start off by going through each of these categories. The first one being deserves the world. These are characters who have just been through so much in their lives and they deserve a break, they deserve the world, and they try so hard, and I just love them so much. The next category is, oh no, they're hot.
Oh no, he's hot!
And I mean, this one's pretty self-explanatory. I will admit, when it comes to a character first being introduced to me and they're introduced as very attractive, let's just say that my intrigue for them increases by like 50%. And maybe I'm just shallow, but at least I'm being honest. But of course, when it comes to a lot of these characters, their appearance isn't the only thing I like about them. There's a lot more to them that I like as well. So that's why it's only just one of the categories, and there's a lot of potential for overlap. And the last category is you're stupid. I like that in a man. And this one is pretty self-explanatory as well. These characters are just plain dumb. But I don't mean dumb in the way that the text tells you that they're smart and you're supposed to think that they're really smart, but they just end up making horrible, stupid decisions and they're dumb that way. No, these are the characters that it's very clear that they were written this way on purpose. And really, they were just born this way. You know it, I know it, the author knows it, their mom knows it. It's just who they are. And of course, because this is in a Venn diagram format, there are some overlap for characters that can fall into multiple categories, and sometimes even all three. So before I get into this list of characters now, I just want to say that I will try to keep this video as spoiler-free as possible. I definitely won't spoil anything when it comes to the plot of the book. However, because of the nature of talking about these characters and what I love about them, sometimes the reason could be because of a specific character arc that they go through that really made me fall in love with them. So if you're someone who's very sensitive to that kind of thing and might consider that to be kind of a spoiler, and you come across a character or a series that you are interested in but you haven't read yet and you really rather know nothing about it, then it's probably best to skip when I'm talking about that character. But again, like I said, I will try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, which also includes the character arcs. So diving right in with the first character on this list, we have Darasi Vargo from the Rook and Rose series by M.A. Carrick. I love Vargo so much. He started off from the very bottom, and from sheer determination and ambition alone, he clawed his way to the top of society. But because he wasn't born a noble, he's still very looked down upon by the noblemen of this society, and they think of him as beneath them, even though he is one of the most powerful men in the city. So Vargo is just so precious to me, and I would protect him with my life. And he's also very good looking, so I'm putting him in this overlap section between deserves the world and oh no, they're hot. And now for the next character. On the complete opposite side, we have Adolin from the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. I love Adolin so much, and not gonna lie, he is my favorite character in Stormlight because 99% of my enjoyment from this series probably comes from any Adolin scene. And if you look at all of my thoughts and reactions in like group chats and Goodreads updates, like the majority of them was me fangirling over Adolin. And I say opposite because Adolin is quite the opposite of a self-made man like Vargo. As my partner likes to describe him, he's described like the equivalent of a privileged white fuckboy nepotism trust fund baby who was gifted a private jet for his 16th birthday. And you know what? He's not wrong. But for some reason, that's what I love about him, especially because he's also just so stupid. He is so dumb so many of the times, but it just makes for really entertaining reading, especially because in the beginning of the series, he's always in like all these different kinds of relationships, but they never work out, and he's always so completely baffled as to why he keeps getting dumped all the time. But you as a reader know why, and you're just like, oh god, like this poor dumb idiot. And the text from certain characters' perspectives also just love to remind us of how pretty he is. So that definitely helps. So I'm putting Adolin into the middle of, oh no, they're hot and you're stupid. Because Adolin is probably like the himboest of himbos that I have ever read. Okay, and I just want to add in that the reason why I love Adolin so much is that despite all of these, he is actually such a good person and such a good friend, and he's so genuine and honest and sweet. And because of all those criteria added together, that is what makes Adolin so great to me. The next character is Hilo from the Greenbone Saga, and just right off the bat, I'm putting Hilo in hot. Hilo is just hot. There is nothing else about it. He is so cool and so badass, and just all the fight scenes in the Greenbone Saga surrounding Hilo, it's just so good. And he also just has this really arrogant, bad boy kind of attitude that can be a turnoff for a lot of people, but for me, I'm like, yeah, I'm on board. So Hilo is definitely one of my favorite characters, and also just because of how dedicated and loyal he is to his family and his crew. Another favorite character of mine from the Greenbone Saga is also Shay, and I know Shay gets a lot of hate because of certain decisions that she makes throughout the series, which I know a lot of people really didn't like, and I don't condone them by any means either, but there's just something about Shay that I feel like I can really relate to. Not when it comes to that thing that people don't like about her, other things. But there's just something about Shay that really draws me to her, like how she really didn't want to be part of this family and whatever they're doing, and tried her best to get away from that, but she was unwillingly brought back. But when she was brought back, she did her damn best to make sure that she did right by her family, and she just works so incredibly hard because Shay goes through a lot, okay? She just deserves the world, and I don't want to hear anything from anyone else about that. So for Shay, I'm putting her in the same category as Vargo in that she deserves the world, but also she's hot, you know? She's part of the Call family. It's in their genes. And then we have one more character from the Greenbone Saga, and that is Andon. Andon is just a precious little bean and another one that I want to protect with my life. He is just the sweetest cinnamon roll, and he goes through a lot of stuff as well. He has not had an easy childhood, and his character arc is probably my favorite in all the Greenbone Saga, and I just want to see Andon happy. That's it. So Andon deserves the world. Next, we are moving on to characters in one of my favorite series of all time, The Emperor's Edge by Lindsay Buroker. The first character being the main character, Amaranth Lockton. So the premise of this book is that Amaranth, who is a really hard worker, she catches the attention of the Emperor, but because of certain political machinations that are happening in the background, she gets wrongfully accused of plotting to assassinate the Emperor. So now she is on the run trying to clear her name, and she recruits this ragtag group of misfits who also have their own reasons for wanting to join this group as well, and she just has a really hard time also just keeping them all in line and making sure that they're working towards their common goal. So Amaranth honestly deserves the world for everything that she has to put up with. There are 4 other men of this group, and honestly, they act like children sometimes, and she has to keep them in line and basically mom them. But it makes for a really fun group dynamic and is very much a found family within this group. And my other favorite character is another one of the characters in this group, and that is Sicarius, who is an actual assassin. And I love Sicarius because he is probably one of the best assassin characters that I've ever read. Like, a lot of times when you read other books, when there's an assassin character, they're always really like edgy and think they're so cool and like flashy. But Sicarius, on the other hand, is very calm and collected and competent and very logical and efficient at his job. So he is actually like a good assassin character. And he has had a pretty tough life as well, and he has his own reasons for joining Amaranth's group, and you find that all out as you read the first book. So love Sicarius. He deserves the world, and also because he's an assassin and he's really cool, he's also pretty hot. Next, we have Gideon Nav from the Lock Tomb series by Tamsin Muir. When I said that Adolin is like the himboest of himbos, I misspoke. Gideon is the himboest of all himbos. Oh my gosh, I love Gideon so much. She is so funny, but also so stupid, but like in the best way possible. One of my favorite scenes was during a scene when Gideon found out that she might have attracted the attention of someone that maybe she shouldn't have attracted the attention of, and she just straight up lies down on the floor on her face and is like, why was I born so attractive? And honestly, Gideon is one of the best parts of this series, and she is one of my favorite characters because of how much she has made me laugh. So Gideon is definitely part of the stupid crowd, but also she's pretty hot too, especially when it comes to her biceps. The next character we have is Misaki from The Sword of Kaigen. She is one of the newer additions to my list of favorite characters since I just recently read The Sword of Kaigen and absolutely loved it. The story was amazing, and Misaki herself is just such an incredible woman. Everything that she has gone through and the journey that she goes through in this book as well, because she is in this society that's very patriarchal and really demotes women into this position of they're just being good to bear children to continue like the bloodline. And Misaki does her best to try to exist in this world, but also rebels in her own way. And I just love how Misaki has this inner strength to herself, not just being a warrior, but also as a mother and a really good friend. So for that, Misaki honestly just deserves the world. Next, we have my favorite characters from the Red Rising saga, and the first one, to nobody's surprise, is obviously going to be Severo, because Severo is everybody's favorite. Like, there is probably not a single person who has read the series that doesn't like Severo. He has just some of the best lines, and he just says the darndest things, and sometimes you're just wondering, why, Severo? Why? But I love him for all the stupid things that he says and does, and for sure he is going into the stupid category. The next character from Red Rising that I really love is Cassius. Cassius is just really pretty, okay? I think that's all I got. Cassius is just good looking. And the series just loves to remind us about that every time he appears. And even Pierce Brown himself also just, whenever he talks about Cassius, he's like, he's just so pretty. But honestly, Cassius has his moments where he's kind of stupid as well. So I would put him into the category of, oh no, they're hot, but just like a little corner in the stupid category as well. And next, my favorite character from the Red Rising saga has got to be Victra. Victra is so awesome. She is just so cool and so badass and so loyal. She is literally the perfect package. But I also love how she's so headstrong and stubborn to the point of being kind of stupid sometimes as well, which just makes her completely perfect. So she's the first one that I'm putting in the middle. She deserves the world. She's definitely hot, and she's also kind of stupid. So I absolutely adore Victra, and if anything happens to her in this series, Pierce Brown can expect a very, very strongly worded email from myself. Subject line, how dare you? Next is two of my favorite characters of all time from my favorite series of all time, which is The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. And the first character is, of course, Fitz Chivalry Farseer. Fitz is so precious. He is like my number one book son. Like, if we were talking about adopting book characters as our children, which I don't know if anyone does, but I do for sure, Fitz is definitely at the very top of my list. And Fitz is like the number one character for someone who just can never catch a fucking break. Fitz has gone through a lot of shit in his life, and Robin Hobb just keeps loving to put him through more. Fitz just suffers through so much and honestly deserves the entire world. However, he also makes really terrible and dumb decisions sometimes. Now, I know I said in the beginning of this video that when it comes to the stupid category, it is not for characters who make dumb decisions. But the thing about Fitz is that we know he is dumb, so it's kind of expected that he makes really poor choices. Like, some of the decisions that he makes are things that you see from a mile away. You're like, oh God, something is gonna happen, and Fitz, please don't choose wrong. Please don't go down this path. but then you have no choice but to sit back and watch them make that very decision that you tried to warn him away against. And that's just Fitz. That's just the way he is. And for those of us who love him, we love him for that. So Fitz is definitely in the overlapping category of deserves the world, but also you're stupid. But I like that. And then also in the realm of the Elderlings, we have the Fool. The Fool is such an enigmatic and intriguing and fascinating character, and probably one of the most interesting ones that I have ever read. The Fool has also gone through some of their own stuff as well, but also the things that they have to put up with when it comes to Fitz and whatever decisions that Fitz makes. Because the Fool tries their best to steer Fitz in the right direction, but Fitz is just like, la-di-da, not listening, I'm just gonna do my own thing. And it's just a whole thing. So the Fool, 100%, they deserve the world for everything that they have to deal with. Ooh, next we have the characters from the Mistborn saga, and I actually have 4 characters on this list, 2 from Era 1 and 2 from Era 2. And from Era 1, of course, we have Vin. As Fitz is my book son, Vin is my book daughter. I love Vin. I adore her so much. One of my favorite things about this series is seeing Vin at the beginning and then this character journey that she goes through and how she learns to eventually trust and open up herself to the people around her. Because growing up as a street urchin, that's never been something that she was able to do. She's always had to be very closed off and guarded. And seeing her warm up to this crew around her is just one of the best things about this series. Vin definitely deserves the world. And after Vin, we have Elend, another precious, precious bean. Elend, oh my gosh, he tries his best, okay? He works so hard and does his best to try to ensure fairness and equality for everyone, even when some of the choices that he has to make in aligning with his principles is detrimental to himself and puts him at a disadvantage. But he's just so noble and so honest and so good. Elend is the best. Elend is precious. He deserves the world, but also he's kind of stupid. Now for Era 2, we have Marcy, who is my favorite character of the second era. And I love how independent and determined she is and how she forges her own path forward in her own life. She's another character who's also trying to make the world a better place, but admittedly, I think she's smarter than Elend, so I'm putting her in just the category of deserves the world. And then the other character that I really love from Era 2 is, of course, Steris. Steris is very not good with people and social interactions, and she realizes her own limitations in this, and so she has to work extra hard to get to a point that might come to a lot of other people a lot more easily. And I love her for that, and how it really doesn't hold her back from achieving whatever she's setting her mind to achieve. And also, I just finished reading Bands of Mourning, and Steris is the absolute best in this book. She has some of the best scenes and best lines. It has really propelled her to the top of my favorites list. So Steris deserves the world for sure. Next we have Ali from the Daevabad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. And similar to Elend, Ali is very idealistic and optimistic and is trying his best to ensure equality for everybody, but he just goes about it in such a stupid way because he is very much not a politician. He is much more of a warrior. So this world in Daevabad where everything is so heavily focused on the politics and court intrigue is really not the world for Ali, and he does not thrive in it at all. But he is so precious for trying. So Ali, while kind of stupid, also deserves the world. And also, there's something about Ali in the second book, The Kingdom of Copper, that just made me look at him in a completely different light. So he's our next character that is going to go in the overlapping of all 3 categories. Deserves the world, is stupid, but also hot. Now the next 2 characters in this next series that I'm going to talk about is probably gonna come as a bit of a surprise, and that is from the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. Now I've only read the first book in this series, and I maybe got through like a third of the second book before I put it down and DNF'd it, although it is something that I eventually want to get back to. So I don't even know if I can really say that these characters are my favorites, like, because I don't really know that much about them, to be very honest, but I think it has more to do with like the character tropes and the character archetypes that they fall in, and because of that I find myself thinking about these characters specifically quite often. So the first character that I'm going to mention is Lucian. I loved Lucian in the first book. He was so funny, but also so silly sometimes. And what I love about Lucian is that he is just like caught in the middle of everything. Like you have Feyre and Tamlin, and they're like going through this whole thing together and like making googly eyes at each other over the dinner table. And Lucian is just like caught in the middle between them and just like kind of like there not knowing what to do. Like, get him out of there. Someone please save him from that situation. So Lucian has gone through some stuff. So I'm putting Lucian in deserves the world, but also just like a little bit also in the stupid category because he has his moments. And the next character is Cassian, who is probably not that much of a surprise because he is definitely another himbo. But like I said, because I only got a third of the way through Akamath, I don't actually know all that much about Cassian. It's really just the character archetype that he falls in, which is just like the perfect character archetype for me, and that is smack dab in the middle of they're hot but they're also incredibly stupid. So yeah, I actually quite like Cassian, and he's the reason why I want to keep reading this series and even read A Court of Silver Flames as well. The next character we have is Victor Vale from Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Wow, that's a lot of V's. Victor is one of my favorite characters because I just think he's so cool and so morally gray, and his superpower is the ability to control pain in himself and in other people. So he can dial the pain down or dial it up, and it's just so cool. Like, I don't know, maybe my reasons for liking him are shallow for thinking that he's just really cool and badass, but I'm putting him in oh no, they're hot because that is how I think of Victor. He's definitely not going into deserves the world because he is not a good guy. He is very much a bad dude. And lastly, the final character I have on this list is a new addition to my list of favorite characters, and that is Wendell Bambleby from Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Wendell Bambleby. How does one begin to describe him? As soon as he was described, I was like, oh my god, this man is basically Howl from Howl's Moving Castle. I haven't read the book, but based off of the Ghibli movie. Bambleby is just so dumb. I love him so much because he is just like this spoiled little brat of a man, and it's just so silly sometimes. And I love all the interactions between him and Emily, especially because he's always trying to be her friend and thinks that they are better friends than they actually are, and he's always trying to get closer to her and do more things with her, and Emily is just like, what are you doing? And just thinks of him as her overbearing, annoying colleague, and the dynamic between them is just so much fun. Bambleby is also described as very good looking, but honestly, like, that is not even a factor to me. For me, it's just all about his personality and his cute, funny, silly demeanor. So I'm putting Bambleby in just, you're stupid. I like that in a man because I feel like he is the peak of this meme. So there you have it. That's the end of this list and the visual representation of my favorite book characters. I actually didn't include all my favorite book characters because there are also a lot others that I really like as well and are also favorite potential, but I just feel like if I went into all of them as well, it would just be way too long, and also those ones don't completely sit neatly in these categories like these characters do. So let me know some of your favorite characters and why you love them and whether or not they also fall into some of these categories. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you again in my next one. Bye!